Well, 680's Richard Southern joins us now. And Richard, just a day after an earthquake rocked Japan, a report is out on what a major earthquake would in BC would do to the Canadian economy.
Yeah, the Conference Board of Canada, France, is looking at this matter. They studied what a major quake in BC or off the coast of BC would mean, and it turns out that it could cause significant financial losses, and the Conference Board says could actually put the national economy in Canada in jeopardy. It found the total economic cost of a major quake out west would be $127.5 billion. $42 billion would be covered by property and casualty insurers. The report really looked at and sort of stress tests how the insurance industry would handle this. It looked at how the insurance industry in this scenario could be dragged down by bankruptcies. Natural Resources Canada projects that there is a 30% chance of a significant quake to hit the BC area over the next 50 years. So it's certainly something the government is studying carefully, Francis.
Now, there is a pilot strike at Lufthansa, the German airline, and that means flight cancellations to and from Toronto.
Absolutely. There was a flight scheduled to leave in, I think, about an hour's time from Pearson to Frankfurt, Lufthansa flight. That has been canceled. Also scrapped the scheduled Frankfurt to Pearson trip tomorrow afternoon. So you're definitely going to want to call ahead if you do have a trip scheduled on Lufthansa. The German airline scrapping 876 flights tonight and through the day tomorrow, affecting about 100,000 passengers with, yes, the pilots going on strike. The airline will give you the option of rescheduling or refunding your ticket if you're affected. The union is calling for a wage increase of 3.7%. The airline says, no, we can't afford that because we're trying to compete with lower cost airlines that have sprung up in Europe. Francis, this is Lufthansa's, or Lufthansa has striked a dozen times over the past 4 years. So this is nothing new for the German airline.
Well, there's a new report out about tipping, and it shows that Canadians are losing years in lost wages.
It's costing us an awful lot of money, and this sort of looked at this report from Lendful Financial, how much it would cost you over your lifetime. So the average millennial, the average younger Canadian will spend on tips over their lifetime, and that means tipping will cost millennials about 2 years the average wage. Millennials about 2 years the average wage in Canada, which is some $41,000 after taxes. And tipping may be having a real outside impact on those lowest earners in the country. 27% of those who earn $20,000 or less still tip between 15 and 20%. So, Francis, a lot of restaurants, or some restaurants, particularly in the U.S., are experimenting with doing away with tipping, charging diners a bit more. And, of course, in some European countries and in Australia, tipping isn't heard of. They just pay their servers and their wait staff and whatnot a higher overall wage. So it'd be interesting to see if we sort of move more in that direction as we go forward.
Yeah, I've been to countries where they laugh at you if you tip.
Absolutely. You know, it does cost, the cost of tipping has gone up disproportionate to inflation. I mean, you're expected now to tip 20% in some cases, so it's a big cost.
I'm a good tipper, though, so I'll just want to say that. I'm a good tipper, especially if there's good service.
I should hope so, Mr. Big-Time News Anchor.
Oh, yes.
Pressure is on when Francis walks in the restaurant.
Look, it's not as much money as New York will be spending to protect Donald Trump's family when he's actually in New York City. So
it's a shocking amount. Yeah. Unbelievable. New York City, Francis, spending $1 million a day on protecting Trump and his family. And that's because he's spending almost all of his time right now at Trump Tower, which, of course, is, you know, in the middle of Manhattan, one of the most densely populated areas in the world. And so there's so many security concerns both on the ground and in the air. And these costs probably won't drop once Trump moves to the White House. That's because his wife, Melania, and their 10-year-old son, Barron, will stay in Trump Tower. And Donald Trump himself says he plans to return home regularly. So it's all costing big money to protect the president-elect, Francis.
Okay, so Netflix has signed Dave Chappelle to 3 comedy specials. And how much is he being paid?
This massive amount of money. So these are, you know, a stand-up special, so maybe an hour and a half long each. They signed him to 3 of them, and according to the New York Post, he's being paid $60 million for this. Unbelievable. This is believed to be one of the biggest contracts Netflix has handed out for this, and they do it because they get a lot of press when they sign someone like Dave Chappelle. That can bring in more subscribers. Netflix stock was higher today at $118.
Hopefully he's a good tipper after that.
I should hope so. Mr. Dave Chappelle should be throwing down the Benjamins.
All right. Thank you, Richard.